Uh, we're live again, so welcome to the live stream, everyone who's new, at least. We're going live. Talk to you later. And I haven't selected a fig this time because I was eating. So I'm gonna select a fig from this list here with a 0 in its line. I've read all of these stories before in the earlier session yesterday. I can read bubbles again, but I'm up for a funny fig. Oh, here. In Celestia We Trust, all others pay cash. That seems to be a funny story. It's a slice of life story where Celestia is financially inept, to say the least.
Good.
So I'm gonna read you guys. In Celestia We Trust, all others pay cash. I'm gonna mute my speakers. It's by George, without an E behind his name. It's Slice of Life. It's a one-shot. It's almost 3,000 words. It's got a lot of likes. And here's the description. Short one shot. Princess Celestia got out on a whim for an ice cream cone and discovered just how shaky her own personal finances are, leading to a fiscal catastrophe that could threaten the status of the entire nation. Now featured on EQD with 2 stories by Bad Horse called Sisters. Okay, well, here we go. In Celestia We Trust, all others pay cash by George. Princess Celestia soared high above Canterlot in the bright afternoon sunshine. Court was over, all her official duties had been finished for the day, and while out on her balcony she had spotted the perfect reward for her day of drudgery. As an unsuspecting ice cream vendor out in the park. She dropped out of the sky in front of the cart with her 2 Royal Guard Pegasi landing behind. 2 scoops of vanilla, please. The chunky earth pony running the cart did not even seem to recognize the royal princess, but carefully hooved out a cone and applied 2 generous scoops of ice cream, white sugary goodness. That'll be 2 bits, ma'am. The raspberry coat of the vendor paled as he suddenly realized who was standing in front of him. I mean, Your Highness? That's perfectly fine, she chuckled as she took the lick of ice cream. Marvelous. Let me just get the small compartment of her yoke of office where she kept loose change and was empty. A quick search of the rest of her possessions revealed the same. Nothing. Pardon me a moment. She turned to her Pegasus guard, who suddenly looked nervous. Could one of you spot me 2 bits? I'm sorry, Your Highness. We don't have any pockets in this armor. Oh, crab apples. She turned back to the vendor with a very royal smile. Do you think I could come back tomorrow and pay? I'm really sorry, Your Highness. The rules say I'm supposed to collect the money when I hoof out the ice cream. Fudge. She thought briefly after trying to return the ice cream, but threw the idea with an extra lick to catch a drip. Can one of you fly back and get the exchequer, please? And tell him to bring some of my personal funds so I can pay this young colt. She soaked in the sunshine while working on the cone, feeling as if all of the warm fuzzies of the afternoon had just dried up and blown away. It was amazing how quickly the guard returned with the executor, an older tan Pegasus with green eye shades and a look of perpetual anxiety. But one thing he did not have was any of her bits. Actually, Your Highness, you don't have any personal funds. Celestia blinked in the afternoon sunlight, a trickle of ice cream falling unnoticed on her hoof. None? What about Canterlot Castle? Government property. You signed it over to the government just after the moon incident. As a matter of fact, you deeded over a great deal of your personal property at the time through charitable endowments, reconstruction, grants, gifts, and restitution. The rest appears to have been frittered away over the years without a proper investment strategy. There was a chest in Celestia's private quarters that at one time had been quite filled with bits. It was a very large chest, but then again it had been a long time since she banished her sister to the moon. Perhaps she should not have been as generous with the allowance she had allocated to her faithful student, and simply deeded the money directly to the booksellers. It would have cut her a great number of middle ponies. The Imperial Gardens, the Sculpturary, the Butterfly Preserve, all held in trust by the government on behalf of the ponies of the nation. Castle of the Royal Pony Sisters, foreclosed by the bank some 870 years ago for non-payment. I understand it's currently being carried on their books at a fraction of its real historical value. If you would be interested in purchasing the mortgage, I would be willing to. Purchase with what? You just said I don't have any personal funds. Well, I presume you could get a loan, although with no applicable credit history for the last several centuries and no personal assets, it may be a bit difficult. I understand your credit score is 0. The exchequer squirmed uncomfortably. Actually, since I'm a government employee, I should not be discussing your personal funds on a government time due to ethics regulations. Princess Celestia was on the threshold of informing him just what he could do with those ethics regulations when she became aware of the substantial crowd they had gathered in the park, all looking at them and listening. She turned back to the blue ice cream vendor and cleared her throat. Ahem, Mr. Raspberry Fudge, that's correct? As you can see, we are currently experiencing some difficulty coming up with the funds necessary for the purchase of. Listen, your highness, if I let you slide on paying me, ain't nobody else gonna pay me either, then how am I gonna make a living? Well, true, she said, taken aback. A pair of bits poked her gently at the side as the exchequer whispered, Here, I can't accept a gift from you, she whispered back. It's not a gift, it's a loan, he replied. If I give you a gift, that's speculation. I would be fired for it. The princess is very strict about accepting gifts or bribes. As it is, I'm going to need you to fill out a form GM452B, and you need to repay me in 30 days, or it has to be reported. As Princess Celestia returned grumbling to the castle after ordering a full accounting of her personal assets from the exchequer, with temporary exception of the ethic rules, things appeared to be returning to normal. Except in the city of Canterlot, no action by the princess goes unnoticed. I heard the princess tried to short an ice cream vendor in the park today. Yeah, I was there. I heard she was out of money. The princess is out of money, but I have business in the castle. Are you sure I'm getting paid? Do you think the government will be defaulting on their debts too? If the government defaults, all the banks will be mobbed with ponies grabbing the money. We'd better get ours first. Morning in Canterlot dawned rather slowly as the sun climbed high up into the sky with the slow plod of some pony who spent the entire night buried in 1,000-year-old paperwork, attempting to make sense of the tiny little numbers that moved about on their own when insufficient coffee was applied to the reader. At breakfast table, Princess Celestia sucked down yet another uncounted cup of the bitter black coffee as she paged through the summary report. Good morning, my sister. How art thou this glorious and delightful morning? Luna danced into the breakfast nook with her smile on her face and snagged a piece of toast. Celestia spared her sister a look that could have peeled paint. Broke. What? Luna gasped. What portion of thine anatomy hast thou injured? You should you not be seeing a surgical what? A chirurgeon? What? Instead of laying about the breakfast table? Not me, she grumbled, dropping her papers on the table. There were a great many of them, all having one thing in common, the number 0. My finances. Luna's mouth made a little O of surprise as Celestia gathered up her papers again. But certainly you have assets. I remember, all either gifted or on indefinite loan, or bequeathed, or a great number of words meanings given away many years ago. She dropped the papers in front of Luna again and poured herself another cup of coffee, turning the pot upside down to get the very last drop regardless of the sediment that came with it. Well, said Luna, scooping up the papers, we can't have this. I mean, a penniless princess is just so uncouth. You are still drawing your salary as a princess, correct? Oh yes, said Celestia, enrolling her eyes. 1 bit per year. By the end of the year, I would have earned enough to pay back the exchequer for the ice cream cone I bought yesterday. A series of rapid taps at the breakfast nook door indicated a servant with a question. Normally, tradition was for them to knock twice, then pause, then go away if they heard no response. Only in dire emergencies were they to knock more than twice. This knocking sounded more like a giant woodpecker was hammering at the door. Come in! The door fairly burst in as half a dozen of servants and court functionaries, including the exchequer, threw themselves forward and all talked at once. Princess, it's just horrible. You have to do something. Anything. The rumors have gotten out of control. The market's down to over 30% and still dropping. Lines at the mint are around the block twice. There's talk of rioting. Your cloud cakes are gonna be late. Silence! Both royal pony sisters glared at the cowering crowd before Celestia pointed at one of them at random. You! Only one at a time! The cloud cakes are late being delivered and... Silence! Go to the kitchen and have them prepared something else. Now you! The exchequer got nervously on his hooves. Your Highness, there have been all kinds of rumors floating about the financial sector this morning. Trading opened significantly down and just plunged from there. The lines at the banks for withdrawal of savings are around the blocks, and banks can't get any more bids from the mint. Equestrian bonds have been downgraded on the bond floor to BB after the Griffins dumped their holdings. It's just a chaos out there. It's worse than when Discord turned Canterlot Lake into chocolate pudding and the pudding futures crashed. Princess Celestia gave a sigh of frustration. Does this have anything to do with my little episode with the ice cream vendor yesterday? The exchequer reddened. Probably. And Your Highness, I reviewed the regulations and I'm afraid I'm going to have to charge you interest on that loan. Princess Celestia and Luna aligned outside the Canterlot market, and a considerably different market than the one in the small towns and cities throughout Equestria. True, this market still bought and sold fruits and vegetables, but in quantities that boggled the mind, even commodities that had not even been planted yet. The passage through trading floor was uneventful, the market ponies ignoring the rulers of the entire country while frantically screaming, "Sell, sell!" to each other as the sisters climbed to the observation booth above the floor. Citizens of Canterlot, hear me! Announced Princess Celestia to the trading floor. Nothing. Not even one eye looked up at her. All the stockbrokers on the floor continued their screaming, and the giant board behind them continued its downward spiral. Your Princess of the Sun commands you! Heed her words, or else! Luna nodded as the sea of sudden shocked faces turned to her sister. Go ahead, Sally. Yes, thank you, Luna. Princess strode to the edge of the platform and looked down at the sea of attentive faces. Citizens of Canterlot, I wanted to address a number of rumors today that have gotten all of you in such a fright. First of all, the financial status of our nation is strong. Exports are up. The industry is at an all-time high. Taxes are down and revenue is up. We are in the middle of the longest peacetime economic boom in the centuries. Now, there is some bad news in there, but it only affects myself. I currently have no personal assets or income. A gasp spread across the room at the thought of such a horrible fate. Yes, it is true. Perhaps I should make a few speeches or write a book. She smiled at the faint titter that ran through the room. That is all I wish to say. Please return to your jobs and do not let any unwarranted rumors you have heard before do any harm to our beloved nation. There was a long silence, broken only by a few hoofclaps, and then the dreaded word sounded. Sell! Within moments the entire room had returned to a state of chaos, undifferentiated undifferentiable from their arrival except for the smaller numbers of price boards in the back of the room. Princess Celestia frowned and turned to her sister, who appeared to be looking intently out onto the trading floor. Well, my sister, what do you think? Buy! A faint voice from the floor drew Celestia's attention like a shot. Then a second voice joined, and then a third. Soon the floor erupted in a flurry of activity that dwarfed the previous selling binge. Both the princesses decided it would perhaps be safer to just remain where they were until the market closed, instead of trying to force their way back outside. Princess Celestia tapped her hoof while waiting in the royal chariot. Her sister was always late for these things. This time Luna had stayed behind on the trading floor to exchange words with a small cluster of investors, while Celestia cooled her hooves outside. Finally, the younger sister emerged from the market and joined her sister for the trip back to the castle. Celestia took a deep breath of fresh air as the chariot gained altitude over the city. It's so good to hear this crisis is averted. From what I hear, the bank's run stopped at the same time the market began to rise, and nearly all of the depositors have returned the money. We should really establish a higher currency reserves and more stringent controls on the markets, although that would discourage investment unless done very carefully. What do you think, my sister? Sounds good. Luna continued reading the piece of paper she had brought out of the market, flipping through the second page. And I really think I should go ahead and start drawing my full salary once again. One eyebrow raised on the royal face. Come to think of it, sister, you have been drawing your salary for the last 1,000 years. Do you think you could just share a few bits with your big sister? Luna looked up from her reading. You mean like when we got candy for Heartwarming Eve, and you just used to share all of my caramel ones in exchange for peppermint ones? Yes, well, no, that was a long time ago. The sisters of the night returned to perusing her paper. Well, I suppose I could afford it. Oh, and I dropped off one of your papers. With who? My investment group. Their great-great-grandparents, many times removed, used the handle of my personal funds, and they did a fairly good job at it too. I'm sure that within a century or two, they will be able to get your personal funds back up to a reasonable level. Luna squinched up her face and tried to sound like a whiny big sister. If you are a good little alicorn and save your money. Oh, that's just deserved, I suppose. Celestia craned her neck over and tried to look at the paper Luna was reading. Net worth. Just how much? Oh, good heavens, Luna! The Pegasi pulling the chariot were well trained, but still flinched at the royal Canterlot voice being unleashed behind them. Sis, what have you said about readings over some pony's shoulder? But, I mean, all those zeros. How much are you worth? Oh, this? She waved the page in front of her sister, where Celestia's net worth statements had quite a few zeros in it, and Luna's had many, many, many more, with numbers in front of them, and commas. It's quite horribly out of date, with the buy orders they put in at the marketplace today, when it bottomed out, we're probably looking at a 15 to 25% increase, less taxes. Late that afternoon, four heavy earth ponies from the mint carefully backed their cart into Celestia's chambers and unloaded a hefty chest that clinked when it was moved. Sorry about being so late with this shipment from my sister, Your Highness. It was an awfully busy day. She nodded politely and expressed thanks in return, waiting until the movers had left her room and the door was closed before she opened the chest. Sitting on top of the pile of golden bits, it was a small piece of paper carefully wrapped in a piece of peppermint candy. Well, at least I can pay back the exchequer. What's this? She opened the paper and began to read. A loan? With that interest rate? Luna! And that was the story. I hope you all enjoyed. and we will be back in let's see, either 10 minutes or 25 minutes. I'll see what I can do, which one it's going to be. I'll type it in a minute. I'm going to quit the live stream and we will be back in a moment. I'll type the time in the Skype in the live stream chat. So that was the story. In Celestia We Trust, everybody else pays money.